Hello everyone, it's Miss Roark and I'm here for day 3 of our first grade math lesson for the first week of distance learning. What you're going to need for this lesson is a piece of paper, something to write with, and the playing cards that you used on Wednesday when we were practicing our subtraction facts. Now, the first thing that we're going to do again is we're going to start out with some flashcards and we're going to practice just regular subtraction, and then when we're finished with that section of the lesson, we're going to move on and we're going to be making fact families, so 2 addition and 2 subtraction facts out of the same 3 numbers using the playing cards. So the first subtraction problem that we're going to work out is 6 minus 2. So I'm going to write it on my whiteboard, 6 minus 2. How do we do subtraction? We circle the bottom number. We know that's the smallest one, and we're going to put it in our head. So 2, and then we're going to count up until we get to 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. We can check that by seeing if 4 and 2 add up together to make 6. So we do 4 plus 2, and our dots, 4 has a dot on each point, 2 has a dot on each point, and we count the dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 minus 2 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6. That right there is half of a fact family. Next problem is going to be 8 minus 5. 8 is the bigger number, so it has to go on top. 8 minus 5. We circle 5, put it in our heads, and count up until we get to 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 minus 3 is 5, but is 5 plus 3 8? Let's check. We have a dot on the points of the 5, and right here in the middle of the hump, and on the points of the 3. Let's count the dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. So we know that this is a really simple way to check our math facts. Next problem is going to be 8 minus 7. 8 is the bigger number, so it has to go on top. Put 7 in our head and count up. 7, 8. We just have 1. So 7 plus 1. We have our dots and circles for 7. Dot, and then dot, circle, dot, circle, dot, circle, and 1 dot on the tip of the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7 plus 1 is 8. 8 minus 7 is 1. Next problem is 7 minus 4. 7 is the bigger number, so it has to go on top. We circle 4, put it in our heads, and count up. 4, 5, 6, 7. So we get 3. 7 minus 4 is 3. 4 plus 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is 7. So we know that we did it right. Okay. Now we're going to get out our cards, so you can flip to the back of the paper or go to a new piece of paper. And we're going to get out our deck of cards that we have again. Again, it can just be any regular deck of cards. We're only going to use the number cards, no kings, queens, jacks, or aces. And we're going to draw 2 cards. but we're going to make 4 problems. So the first 2 cards I drew are 7 and 5. I'm going to start out with a subtraction problem. So my first problem is going to be 7 minus 5. 7 minus 5, we circle the 5, put it in our heads, and count up until we get to 7. We count up from 5 until we get to 7. I was counting backwards from 7. But that's okay, because sometimes we make mistakes, and we can just say, oops, and move on. So, 5, 6, 7. So, 7 minus 5 is 2. First, we're going to check that, but our 3 numbers that we're going to be using are 7, 5, and 2. You have to have 3 different numbers to create a fact family. So let's check this problem first. We have 2 plus 5. Do my dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Great. So then these are our original subtraction problem and our original addition problem. But we can still make 2 more problems out of these because we can switch up the order that the numbers are added or subtracted. So the opposite of subtraction problem of 7 minus 5 equals 2 would be 7 minus 2 equals 5. Again, I know that this answer is correct because it has to be using all 3 of these numbers to be in this fact family. So finally, the last fact family problem for this one would be, our original addition problem was 2 plus 5 equals 7. So this one would be 5 plus 2 equals 7. So we're always going to have 2 answers that are the same and 2 answers that are different when it comes to fact families. That's because the addition problem, it doesn't matter which order you add the 2 smaller numbers, they're always going to add up to the bigger numbers. But with subtraction problems, you have to keep the biggest number, excuse me, you have to keep the biggest number at the top, or else you will get a negative number, and that's not a correct answer for this level of subtraction. So because you have to keep the biggest number at the top, that means the answers are going to come through differently. So let's clear this up and draw a new problem. I should have grabbed a bigger eraser. Okay, the next 2 cards I'm going to draw are 4 and 2. I'm going to start out with the subtraction problem, and I know that 4 is bigger than 2, so 4 has to go on top. 4 minus 2. We circle 2, put it in our head, and count up to 4. 2, 3, 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. This one's going to be interesting because we have 2 numbers that are the same. So we're going to have a lot of the same answers in our problems. The way that we flip this one is to make an addition would be 2 plus 2. We have dots at the end of each 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, we could keep going, but the problems would look exactly the same because if you switch the answer of 2 with the 2 that's being subtracted, it looks exactly the same. 4 minus 2 is still 2. So with this fact family, there's actually only 2 problems with these 3 numbers because it's really only 2 numbers. Okay, next is 10 minus 8. 10 is bigger, so it has to go on top. We circle 8 and put it in our head and then count up until we get to 10. So 8, 9, 10 is 2. So we know that the three numbers we're working with are 10, 8, and 2. To make this an addition problem, we take the bottom two numbers and bring them up to the top of our equation. So we have 8 plus 2, and the way we check that is 8 has dots and circles on the outsides of each of the humps, and 2 has dots right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then to make the rest of our fact family, we're just going to flip them. So 10 minus 2 is 8, and 2 plus 8 is 10. All right, that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. So real quick, before I have you practice these on your own with the cards, I'm just going to really quickly go through the rules one more time. So you draw 2 cards from your deck, any 2 cards that have numbers on them. For example, 6 and 2. First, you make a subtraction problem out of those 2 numbers. 6 minus 2, the bigger number has to go at the top. And then you do the subtraction problem, circle the smaller number and put it in your head, count up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is 4. Then you pause and write down the 3 numbers that you're going to be using to make the other 3 problems. So you have 6, 2, and 4. After you have that, you know that all of your problems have to use all 3 numbers. And unless you have a doubles problem where you've added the same number twice, you're always going to end up with 4 different equations. This right here is called an equation. If you have a doubles problem, if you draw, like I did earlier, I think it was 4 and 8, then you're only going to have 2 problems because when you subtract it, you're going to end up with the same number as your smaller number. So after you've figured out your 3, you're going to make 2 subtraction problems and 2 addition problems with these 3 numbers. So I know that to make an addition problem, I have to bring my answer and the bottom number up to the top. 2 plus 4, add them together, and you can do the dots, or you can say, I know that my answer has to be 6, because 6 is the other number in this problem. So 2 plus 4 is 6, and then you look at it and figure out what other, what other combination of numbers can you use to make 2 more problems. So with the subtraction one, I know that the 6 has to stay on top because it's the biggest number, but I can flip the 2 and the 4 and come up with a new problem. So the next subtraction problem would be 6 minus 4 is 2. And the next addition problem, I know that if I add, I've already added, I haven't already added anything else, but I know that if I add 6 and 4, I'll get a bigger number. And if I add 6 and 2, I'll get a bigger number than 6. So I can't add anything else to 6 because it has to stay the biggest number in the problem. But if I flip these so that 4 is on top, that's technically a different problem. 4 plus 2 still equals 6. So in the addition problems, you're never adding anything to the biggest number in your set of numbers because that would be outside the fact family. Because if I added 6 plus 4, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I know that 10 isn't in my group of 3 numbers that I'm adding or subtracting, so this problem is not part of our fact family. I hope that that was easy to follow along, and good job finishing your first week of distance learning.